that's what my ministry has been about. It's about encouraging people because I tell, listen, at one time I might have been the worst guy in the room. You know, I mean, you live that life. Every single day, you're living in violation of both God's laws and the laws of man.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Michael, Miquelle, welcome to the Hopeaholics Podcast.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's our pleasure. We're excited.
I'm beyond excited. I'm like through the roof.
Shane is insanely excited too. He can't even sit still. He doesn't know what to do. He's nervous.
Excited. I mean, I'm so happy to have
He's
you
supposed to
guys.
be holding the mic right now. That was the whole reason why Emily detached it from the stand, yet it's on the floor.
Yeah.
So well done, sir.
Thank
All
you very
good.
much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you want to pick it up and hold it?
Yes, I will pick it up and hold it.
Emily, see what I got you, Emily. I got you. But I just have to say, this is how crazy the world and to me how God works, right? So I've been a fan of your father for quite some time. I believe I've watched you on, multiple podcasts. Patrick Bet David is one where I was just like, dude, this dude's so like, I like this dude. And then dove, deeper into your story and all of a sudden how worlds collide, right? So then I actually had met your husband at Equinox prior to you guys getting together, and then he comes in here on the Hopeaholics. Then I get to meet his now new beautiful wife, and then we're chit-chatting, and he has met my husband as well. And then I'm like, wait, whoa. And then as soon as I hear her maiden name, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
Can it be?
The one and only. And then, so shout out to your amazing husband sitting behind for kind of making all of this kind of happen. I really appreciate it. And it just is, it's really cool how things work out because we're meant to share our stories, and you guys both have a huge one.
Well, I'll tell you something. You've accomplished something that I've been unable to do, and that is get my daughter to sit down and do a podcast together. So I appreciate that.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I have a love for, I'm the youngest of all boys, so just to have you two together in the same room, a father-daughter, there's nothing like a father-daughter bond, I think. And so I'm really grateful for you both. And I know when we first met too, I could see that you were like a little hesitant because originally I was like, we need to get you on the podcast. And then she's like, I don't know. And then obviously I feel like I can twist an arm pretty well a little bit.
Is that from your WWE days?
Maybe, or she was just being really, really sweet and rolling with me. So I appreciate you finally being like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it with my dad. And then I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Then let's roll. So the fact that you're here, thank you very much for coming on because I know you're the first top of your list.
No, I'm excited. It's I think it's been a long time coming, and Webb definitely gave me the extra nudge. My dad's been talking about it, then the two of them conspiring behind my back, and here we are. And then we met you, and it was funny. I told you too. I grew up watching Total Divas with my mom and my sisters, and so when he told me he was doing this with you, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. We used to watch it, and my mom was like, you could do this. She's like, I could see you totally doing this when we watched you and like the Bella twins.
Yeah.
She's like, you could totally do something like this. So it's just, again, it's just funny how life works,
right? But then
Yeah,
what's
we all are.
crazy is that meeting you in person, and then you played it super cool until when we started like going back and forth on DMs. Then that's when you said, oh, I watched you on Total Divas, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh my god,
Yep.
crazy.
I know.
I think before we actually like unpack, because I have lots of questions for both of you, I want to know how it was meeting her husband, because I mean I'm assuming It's kind of. It's
Well,
gotta be.
I mean, I thought
It's gotta be a scary thing.
You went and unpacked.
I have a lot of things to ask, so I don't know where to go.
That's like a rough topic for a dad right off the bat.
Well, I guess I'll give it to you first, because how do you bring a husband or anybody that
A boyfriend.
I know we don't talk about boyfriends now that you're married, because
Yeah.
we never dated anyone before our husbands. You know what I'm saying? No one existed. But I mean, I feel like that would be definitely difficult to be like, oh, by the way, you're gonna be my dad and then my brothers, and just so you know, we ain't a normal family.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, first to say, I brought a lot of clowns home, unfortunately. So I think I was excited to actually bring someone that I thought my dad would respect and actually see as, you know, a legitimate candidate in the family for
Sure.
me, for just, you know, all of the above. So the beginning was a little rough, you know, we all have our things, and he had been married before, and just kind of going through that and dealing
Sure.
with that. I wasn't that nervous in regards to that, because my dad had been married before, like divorce and all of that. And my dad is actually a lot easier than my mom. So I felt like I was a lot more, you know, I was more willing to talk to my dad about it. And I was like, I think he'll like this guy. He's from New York. My dad's from New York. Like, he's a man. He takes care of me. He has his own business. Like, I finally had someone that I was like, okay, this is a good one, right?
Mhm.
So I was excited about that. I felt like after, you know, getting through just the kind of the mess in the beginning, that I could see them really becoming close and having a lot to bond in and like talk about, and he never, not even close, had that with anyone else before that I'd ever brought home. So I was a little nervous, as always, you know.
For sure.
It's like bringing someone into the family. My family is tough because there's a lot of us and we have a lot of strong personalities. It's one of those families, which I would say it's like a lot of families, you know, when you're in, but to get in is like, it's rough. It's like, okay, well, mom likes you, but the toughest person in the last couple of years has actually been my baby sister for many reasons. So Jules doesn't like you. She's kind of like, you know, the one to get on your side at the moment. So she was the tough one in the beginning. My dad was good, but he also kind of keeps you at arm's length. Like, I can tell when he's just like, okay, like, he's here, but we don't know if he's staying. So as I've gotten older, it's a little bit harder for them to fully accept.
Sure.
So that's always tough in the beginning, but he proved himself, and he was like, I'm not giving up, and he kept showing up, and he kept, you know, wanting to be around the family, as opposed to like, well, this person doesn't like me, so I'm going to stay away. Like, he's like, no, like, I'm here for, you know, everything. I'm here to be with you, and your family just needs to get to know me. And he didn't back down, and that was like really impressive to me. And I think he proved himself.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's alive and he's sitting to the left of me.
He's
so
here.
we're good.
He's here in the room.
You are correct.
He's here in the room. So
Yeah. So all worked out. Way to go, Webb.
Dad. How was it?
Yeah.
How was it meeting Webb?
It was okay because, like she said, unfortunately, she brought a few that were unacceptable.
Yeah.
But I have to say this, and he is in the room, that he tried so hard from day one, and I saw that. And I said, well, this guy's putting in so much of an effort. Let's give him a shot. And, you know, he proved himself and continues to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a dad, I appreciate that. I was skeptical in the beginning, not so much because I know that she made some choices that were not that great. But I said, okay, let's see what happens. And it's worked out. So it's good.
Nice.
That's that's not to say he still can't screw up.
Oh, yeah. He can still screw up. I just really quick, because I'm a dad of girls. My oldest is going to turn 24, and I just want to really quick give you a rundown of why this podcast exists. And because you said something that really triggered this thought in my head, is it takes a lot to get into my family as well. And any girl that my little girl brought home was never even close to good enough. And she brought Justin home. And Justin I couldn't stand the little prick. And she brought him home when she was 16 years old, and eventually he grew on me and he became part of my family. And on 9/11 of 2022, my little girl found him dead in his bed from fentanyl. That's the reason why this podcast exists. And I don't think he screwed up. I just, he had his own internal struggles as well. But I loved the kid. I eventually loved him like he was my own son. And just having the two of you here and having Webb here just really kind of brought that up inside of me. And I kind of wanted to let you guys know why we exist. And, because we're on a mission, and a mission from God, because after he passed away, I decided that, or God had put it more on my heart, that I was going to be the voice for the people who have lost their lives to this crisis that's going on in the world right now, especially in America, 300 people dying every single day.
Well, you probably don't realize what a chord you just struck with our family, because 3 years ago, this past October, our youngest daughter, Julia's boyfriend, was in my house dead on the floor from fentanyl.
Oh, wow.
And my wife and daughter discovered him. I was in Chicago on my way back from a speaking engagement, and I'm in the car and I have Ring on the phone, and all of a sudden it comes up, the video comes up, and I see police going in and out of my house. This is 6 a.m. And then paramedics, and I thought, what happened? I thought, God forbid something happened with the family, but that's what happened. And he took an Adderall that was laced with fentanyl, and he was working for me. So we went through our own 3 years, and that's why my youngest daughter is she's difficult.
Yeah.
She's gotten a little bit better now because it was really traumatic and a big crisis. And Mick we all went through it as a result of that. But so I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because I started to love this young man too. As a matter of fact, I made a statement recently that was kind of controversial. I said, when Trump got into office, what I would do if I were him, I would line up the National Guard on the border and say, if you come across with that stuff, you're going to get shot.
Yeah.
Because we got 100,000 people a year dying from this garbage. And, we got to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
So, not to bring this up on a downer, but it is what it is.
but it's knocking on everyone's front door, because I'm sorry for your guys' loss. He took an Adderall thinking it was an Adderall.
Yeah.
His son-in-law took a Percocet thinking it was a Percocet. That is a problem, is that the kids right now are not using drugs thinking like back when we all used to use. It's not. Going in, grabbing an 8 ball of cocaine, I barely knew what I was getting. Right. Now, you have no idea. You're lucky if you're getting anything that is...
You might have had some baby laxative in there.
Maybe, and I'm okay with that. I wake up in the morning from that. I might have to be in the little restroom for a little bit, but I'm okay. Now, it's not like that anymore. Now you're...
poisoned.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's poison. That's what we call it, and that's what, and that's what we have been putting out there for the last almost 2 years now. Is we do not call it an overdose. We call it a poisoning. There's no safe dose of illicit fentanyl. Right. So it can't be an overdose. It can only be a poisoning. Whether it's a for the law or not the law, that's not my point. My point is to the American people, we are being poisoned. But wow, I didn't know when I just said what I said that was that happened to you guys as well. So I too am sorry for your loss, and it's not easy.
It just goes to show
how common it is.
How close, exactly, and that's what's tragic.
Everybody in America is one person away from having a loved one that passed away. There's it's just how it is, and it's very, very unfortunate right now.
For sure, and the ripple effect.
And the three of us agree with you with the National Guard.
Yeah,
we're all on your side with that statement.
Thank you.
It's a powerful one, and it's something that needs to be handled.
Well, listen, this you can't show weakness in this regard. This has to be. People have to understand you cannot bring this garbage into our country. Period. End of story. And you don't want to act in that way, but sometimes there's no other way.
Yep.
And listen, Jesus wasn't meek.
No.
He wasn't meek. When he had to be, he showed his strength. And I think in this regard, we need to do that. And I hope Trump backs that up.
I think
I
so.
really mean it.
I hope so too.
Me too.
You mentioned Jesus, and in your earlier days, did you always have a connection to Jesus? Because obviously what you're doing now is very different from your previous business. But did you always have a strong connection to Jesus during that kind of, can I say mob time?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I did not. I mean, I grew up as a Catholic,
Okay.
but for me, quite honestly, Catholicism was like a subject in school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't understand about a relationship with Jesus. As a matter of fact, I can honestly say I had this wimpy view of Jesus. It was never, his character was never really given to me in a way that I really fully appreciated it. You see him hanging on the cross, and okay, you know, we get it. So I didn't have a relationship with him at all. It wasn't really till much later on that happened. So I had no moral compass with respect to my faith at that point. And I grew up Catholic school from kindergarten right through high school. I was an altar boy the whole bit.
Wow.
It just didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense just from the big transition too. I mean, I could only kind of segueing into how it was growing up with your father, you know, in that type of business, and then having to now see where he's at even today. It has to be an experience for you as siblings as well, like to take in. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when he was in the life, I was like a baby, and he had just left and gone to jail when I was like 1. I had just been born, and
You were less than one,
less
actually.
than 1, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as far as like knowing him in the life, I don't feel like I ever really experienced that. But the repercussions of it, you know, not having him home for until I was 9 is when he fully came home, in and out for, I think it was like 7 years total, 8 years total. So that was definitely challenging. And then having, you know, when we used to go visit him, it was always fun. You know, he would play with us, and we were excited to see him, and we were devastated when we left, and we cried. But when he actually came home, I think it was like a shock to us, like, oh, he's here all the time. And I remember one time he like yelled at us for something, and my sister was like, Mom, why is that man yelling at me? And like, obviously we knew it was our dad, but it was just like a weird transition. But my mom was always super strong in her faith, grew up going to church, praying, all of that. So that was always big in my childhood and all the way throughout my life. But yeah, as far as like knowing him in that life and knowing him as my dad, I feel like I've always just seen him as my dad.
Sure.
And like, we didn't read his books growing up, and we didn't, like, people would ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, like I almost didn't want to know like the details until I got older. Then I read one of his books and started just kind of like, you know, listening more and opening my eyes more. And I also just knowing exactly what it all entailed as I got older. Because when you're younger, you're just like, you know, you don't know. But it's funny because I just see my dad. Of course. You know, like I can't even picture him that way either. And I've seen all the mob movies and I've heard all the stories, and I'm just like, I don't know.
You're like, that's just my dad. That's just my dad.
Well, I just learned that she read one of my books. I didn't know that either.
Oh, wow.
Look
Breaking
at that.
news.
The smallest
See?
one.
See?
That I read it in like 5 hours.
Oh, God the Father. Yeah.
The little one.
So let me ask you a question. How did you end up getting into this life, into that life? Not this life, that life.
You know, my dad, long story short, drew a 50-year prison sentence, and I believed he was innocent. I still believe it, that he was innocent of that particular case. And I was a pre-med student when he got that 50-year sentence, and I was 19. And I figured it was a death sentence. And then Joe Colombo was the boss of our family at that point, and he had created this Italian-American Civil Rights League to help people out that were, you know, allegedly, you know, targeted by the FBI. So I got very close with the league, and Joey, I saw it as a way to help my dad out, lost interest in school. And I visited my dad in the penitentiary in Leavenworth one day and said, Dad, I'm not going to school. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. 50 years, you're 50 when you went in. And it was during that conversation, he was reluctant. He didn't want that for me. But I said my mind was made up, and I was a pretty headstrong kid. And he said, if you're going to be on the street, I want you on the street the right way. And in his mind, it was to become a member of his life. So he proposed me for membership at that point. I had just turned 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, just because of like seeing you and like the interviews that I've watched you. It's kind of crazy for my imagination to take me there. Sitting before me is this person, and then who I had imagined. You know, you played the character. You play, like, you know how your book is always pretty savage, right? Like the life. And it's amazing. It's a testament to you're one of the chosen ones, because to get out of that life and to be where you are today, to be sitting with your beautiful daughter, to be with your son-in-law, your wife, to share your glimmer of hope, which is what this podcast is all about, is a testament to me. That gives me chills of like the power that God can do to somebody, and to have on the impact that God has on a family's life, because you really shouldn't be here, and you shouldn't be in front of us telling your testimony per se, because I've never, or I don't know of, and you correct me if I'm wrong, especially anybody that gets out of that life usually is witness protection program or something of that level, where you wouldn't be able to come publicly on podcasts or other people's podcasts that I've watched you on, write books, and kind of tell your life without having the repercussions. And usually those repercussions are not good, which is why people end up in witness protection programs and things of that nature. So I guess my big question in a roundabout way is, how are you able to do something like a podcast and be living your life without, I didn't see, you know, unless they're surrounding and there's a drone outside, you know, of security, but that's how I would think that you would be rolling.
Well, you know, it's important that your viewers understand this. I don't know of anyone that walked away from that life publicly without cooperating with the government, entering a witness protection program, and live to talk about it. And it only shows you that a couple of things. Number one, there's no blueprint for walking away from that life and getting away with it. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I never sold my former associates short. I mean, they're very capable. But I believe that God had a different plan and a purpose for me, and he's made that very evident. And one example that kind of stands out to everybody, Fortune magazine, 1986, wrote a huge article, 50 biggest and most powerful mob bosses in the country. And it was half the magazine. They featured 6 of us. I was one of the 6. They actually had a chart with the 50 of us on there according to rank and wealth and power. So I'm number 18 on the list, the youngest guy on the list. And I always say, how did they make a list like that? They didn't ask for our tax returns. It was ridiculous, right? Just sold a lot of magazines. But here's what's not ridiculous about the list. Out of that list of 50, some 30-odd years later, 48 of them are dead. Number 49 is, I believe, might be just getting out of prison. He's in his 90s. And I'm here to talk about it. So to say that God had his hand in it is an understatement, because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. You know, there was a contract on my life, and the FBI came in. You're a dead man anyway. You know, your father turned against you. I mean, I had everything that you can imagine. So I attribute a lot of this to my wife, who I know prayed for me. My mother-in-law prayed for me. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to move forward on this, see what happens. And here I am. You know, I'm 73 years old, so whatever happens now, it's a bonus. Let's put it that way. But you know, there's no question, and that's what my ministry has been about. It's about encouraging people, because I tell, listen, at one time I might have been the worst guy in the room. You know, I mean, you live that life every single day. You're living in violation of both God's laws and the laws of man. And I did it knowingly and willingly. There was nobody forcing me. You know, once I made that decision, it was up to me. But God obviously had a different plan and a purpose for me. And when God has that plan and a purpose, nothing's going to stand in its way until that purpose is completed. And that's what I attribute my life to at this point.
What about your boys? Like your brothers? did they ever want to partake in the life, or were you completely already removed by the time that they were, I guess, even old enough to ask that question, perhaps?
Well, like Miquelle said, I was married once for a short time. I had 3 kids in 3 years, and one of them was a boy, 2 girls and a boy. And my son, there was a point in time when my dad was out on parole, and I heard that he was driving my father around to certain places. So I literally got on a plane and went to New York. And I said, Dad, stop. I don't want my son involved in this. Because there could have been some anger with me, and maybe there would have been a repercussion to him. My dad probably didn't think of that, or maybe he didn't worry about it. But I said, you need to give me your word right now, stop. And he did. And then I brought my son out to California, because I would never have either one of my sons involved. My youngest son, it's not for him at all. That's for sure. Wouldn't have to worry about that. But no, I would never have them involved in it.
Yeah.
Never.
What about as for you to watch your father kind of step into his ministry and to kind of watch him in this life now? Because I almost feel like you've lived 2 lives, from being in kind of the mob life and then to like what you're doing now, are 2 polar opposites. You could almost say, the evil to good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of it's a crazy coin if you think about it. And for you to kind of, I know you were so little when obviously he went away, but you do remember having to visit him while he was incarcerated, and then him coming home, and then for your sister to be like, why is that man yelling at me, when you knowing it's obviously your dad, but then to see him share his testimony and I know because I follow you and your husband on social media, and you guys really speak the word. And I think that's so great, because a lot of people shy away from faith, or they have an ill connotation with church or religion, depending on how they were raised. So I guess my question is, how does it for you to see what he is doing today?
So like I said, I worked for him at a point too. So I used
you
to
did?
travel with him. Yeah. When I was younger, I was like
How old?
his assistant. I don't know. Was it like in my early 20s?
Yeah.
Like
early
right out of
20s.
college.
And you know what? Actually, before you answer my initial question,
Yeah.
when you were growing up, like as a little girl, when he was incarcerated, did you have a relationship with Jesus then? Or did you always have like a strong faith, that the faith that I see you putting on social media right now with your husband?
Yeah. Like I said, my mom has always been a strong Christian, and she just instilled that in us. And I used to see her praying all the time. And my grandmother too, she was just, she had a prayer book like the size of a telephone book. And she was always say, oh, this person did that to me. It's okay. We're going to pray for them. Or this, like, she was just, just such a woman of God. And she passed that to my mom. And so I feel like, yes, it's always been a big thing in my life. We went to church every Sunday. We're in Sunday school, all of that. Growing up and as an adult and a young adult, I definitely stepped away and came back, or had tough times, or I don't want to go to church or any of that. But I always knew, like, it was always there, the conviction, always felt the tug back. And the last like 2 years, I feel like my faith has grown like enormously, and I just can't imagine my life without it. So it's amazing to see what God has done in my dad's life and then in our life, as a family, and how when I was younger, I didn't realize the gravity of the life that he was in before, and as you get older and you realize, like, wow, really to be where he's at now, and for us to be where we're at, and the whole deal is just, there's no other explanation besides God, like it just couldn't be possible. And things like that have really strengthened my faith. And it's incredible to see. And I'm so grateful that God brought my mother into my dad's life, because that's why I'm here today. And I just feel like it was all part of a plan that, was always there. And it's amazing to see it unfold. And we've had our fair share of tough times because of his previous life. And I think, like, yes, it's a God thing that we're here, but there you can turn your life around, but I feel like there's still consequences for the things that you've done, you know, in your past, and it kind of like follows you sometimes. But I think overall, like we're extremely blessed, and God definitely has his hand in our family. And I think also because of that, we face a lot of hardship. And I feel like, you know, the devil's kind of always on the attack because we are such a strong family and we do have such a strong faith. And my dad is doing such amazing things for the Lord. So with that comes, you know, the other side of it where there's just always something kind of trying to drag you down, pull you down, and test your faith almost. Like, well, you know, you're doing all of this for God. Let me see if you'll still be doing that if this happens to you, or if I take that away, or if, you know, whatever. So it's just, I think things like that have only made us stronger. So it's almost like, I don't, you know, I say this because I have such a strong faith. It's almost like bring it on, because we know what the Lord is capable of. It's not even us. It's, we know what he's capable of, and he has his protection over us. And clearly he's had his protection over my father for however many years.
Oh,
so.
for sure.
What you just said reminded me of Mike Tyson. It's just the thing.
I just said it. I said it in the last one. I was just going to say it again.
Yeah.
You've heard of it, right?
Yeah. If
Michael Tyson says it to Francis Ngannou, and it says, you know why what
if
that
you're
why
favored by God,
that means you're he said it's basically that means you're one of God's favorites. And you know what that means also? That means you're also the devil's.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
if you're favored by God, you're favored by the devil.
yeah, so you're
No
going to
doubt.
get pulled by
No
both, which makes exactly what you just said a perfect example of kind of his explanation to Francis Ngannou, big time.
But God wins every time.
Michael, I'm wondering, how was the forgiveness process, your personal forgiveness process? You did a lot of things. You know, you lived that mob life, you pushed a lot of buttons, you made a lot of calls that we see on TV that people just kind of imagine, but you actually lived it. How was that personal forgiveness that you went through?
It was difficult. You know, when I first came to Christ, it was a challenge for me. I actually challenged God. And because I wanted to see evidence of the fact that he really was God and really was the Savior. Because evidence, I mean, I've been to trial 5 times. I've been indicted 7 times. I mean, so evidence is prominent in my life. I'm always searching for it. And the forgiveness part, I think it really sunk in. It was in, you know, I spent almost 3 years in solitary. And I was reading the Bible constantly. And one day, for some reason, when I was reading the crucifixion for the umpteenth time, it just really came to me that anyone can be forgiven. You know, it's the whole thief on the cross thing. And I had read before, but it just got to me that one particular time. And I said, okay, yeah, you did a lot of bad things, Michael, but there really is a God that's ready to forgive you. It taught me another thing, you know. A lot of people, I just got an email the other day and said, you know, you talk about your past life like you're not ashamed of it. How dare you not be ashamed of it if you call yourself a Christian? And immediately the Brooklyn comes out in me.
Sure.
But then I said, okay, stop. Don't answer this right away. Let me think.
Yeah.
Let the Christian answer this, right? Because I always say this, you can take the boy out of Brooklyn. You can't always take
sure.
Brooklyn out of the boy. You know what happens. It comes. Well, you got to restrain yourself. And I said, you know, brother, I called him. I said, how do you judge somebody's heart? I said, you don't know what's in a person's heart. I said, I'm not ashamed of what I was involved in. I'm not proud of it. I don't hold it up as a badge of courage. But that's what I had to go through to get where I am today. I said, and obviously God saw something in my heart worth saving. And there's a lot of men in that life that I believe could be the same. Maybe they weren't as fortunate as I am, you know, to where the bell went off and I said, okay, you know, I get it now. I had a wife that led me there. I had a mother-in-law that prayed for me. I had a church that took my whole family in when I was, you know, in jail. I mean, the church was amazing to my family. So all of these things made a strong impression on me. But I struggled with forgiveness mightily until a certain time in the hole, and it was probably after a year that I was studying my Bible and reading, that it came to me, okay, you really are forgiven. Don't pull the wool over your own eyes and think, you know, this is real. And now I believe there is no limit to God's grace and mercy and forgiveness. That's why I got, you know, a little bit criticized because I sat with David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. How could you sit with that guy and he killed? And I said, well, who am I to judge anybody? You know, look what God did in my life, you know. And so I believe there's no limit to God's grace and mercy with anyone. And I know that's very hard for some people to accept. Well, this was such a bad guy. How could you even think that he would be redeemed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the Lord. He showed us that. He died on the cross for us. So it really sunk in at that point. And now I believe it. Look, I say this all the time. I'm not the best Christian. I struggle with,
for sure.
Stuff. But my faith is rock solid. Nobody can tell me any different based upon my own experience and what I've seen in my life from others, the testimony of others. Amazing. So, and I always say this too, there's some common sense involved in this with me, in that from the time I was 5 years old, my father said, the standard you have to live up to in your life, you got to be a man's man. That's it. You walk down the street, hold your head up high, you got to have integrity, treat women and children the right way. You got to be a man's man. You get into the life, same thing. We're men of honor, we're men above men, the whole bit. So when I first came to Christ, I said, you know what? I want to see what kind of guy he is. So I separated his dayhood from his manhood, rather, and I just studied Jesus of Nazareth. Let me see what kind of guy he was. And of course, he blows you away. Mm-hmm. There was nobody else like Jesus of Nazareth as a man in every facet of his character. So I really focused on that. And I come up with this conclusion, and this, I don't know how this sits with you, but I said, okay, so let me try to emulate the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth. I'm going to be a better husband, a better father. If I'm a boss, I'm going to treat my employees right. If I'm an employee, I'm going to give my boss an honest day's work. Everybody in the community are going to benefit from me emulating the greatest guy that ever walked the face of the earth, and I'll benefit throughout my life. And then I said, if I'm dead and I'm wrong, well, I'm dead anyway, so what did I have to lose? So I said, emulating Jesus is a win-win situation because we know he's the savior of the world, so how can you lose? You can't. And I get this across to men, and it's a very powerful argument, and it's just practical thinking. It's the truth. So, it's a no-lose situation to emulate Jesus. Period. And for those people that say, well, the Bible is not real, there's so much evidence to prove that the Bible is absolutely God's word. And I can go into that. It's in my book and everything else. And it's just too powerful to overlook. Period. And that's how I view it. And that's how I live my life. Not perfect, but with that belief.
But I think that's important, especially in like kind of our culture right now. Because we do live in kind of a social media era. So I think it's really important for someone that where on the outside looking in, you have these younger men looking upon to you as this like big, strong, bad guy, right? Which is really enticing. Yet you're speaking the word of Jesus now and you're seeing like the transformation of what is really truly means to be a man. It's not like this fallacy that sometimes we create in our imagination, but the person that you have become, and then also being honest with none of us are perfect. We would be liars if we said that we were, so for someone to judge another is exactly the opposite in my eyes of what Jesus would do to begin with anyways. Do you think that, because you were saying the tug and pull to bring you back to faith, and 2 years ago something kind of happened in your life to kind of bring you back to the church, was there something really huge, that kind of monumental, that made that switch in you? Or was it the influence of your dad and watching his journey and his ministry and kind of seeing him spreading his message as well, or a combination?
I think for me, definitely a combination, but for me specifically, I feel like, so I'm 30, I'm going to be 39 this month, and I have wanted to get married for a long time, have a family, and just have kids and all of that. And I kept feeling like I was getting further and further away from it. And I think one day, I don't know if it was like one specific day or moment, but I just finally realized like I cannot do this on my own. I am doing it all wrong. I am like trying to take things into my own hands, trying to force things, trying to talk myself into something being right when it wasn't. And not fully surrendering. And I think that's what it actually took. Is I just remember being so, I don't want to say depressed, but just like I almost had I gave up, in the sense that like, maybe that's not for me. Maybe I'm not going to find my person. Maybe I'm not going to have kids. And I kind of started, it was the devil obviously telling me those lies. And I think I just had to fully surrender. I was just so sad. And just, it was, my sister had gone through her thing. Our family was dealing with that. So I just kind of felt like there was a darkness over all of us. And it was consuming. And I realized, like, yes, I always have these convictions, and I know Jesus is the Son of God, and I believe with all my heart, and I know I'm going to heaven, and all of it. Like, none of that was ever a question, but I just wasn't fully surrendered to him, and I wasn't living every single day for him, and I wasn't just talking to him daily and reading my Bible and, all the things. It's like going to church on Sunday was a routine, but it was like I was showing up, but I wasn't fully just in it. Little things like I started going to church and lifting my hands in worship, and that used to freak me out. Like, I always was just like, I can't do that. Like, that's scary. Like, that's weird, and even being a Christian my whole life. And now, like, I feel totally like, I lift my hands, I jump up and down, I cry, I'm singing at the top of my lungs, even though I don't have a good voice. It's like things have just, I don't even, I can't even say exactly what it was, but me just surrendering and being like, you're messing this all up. You need him to be fully the leader of your life, because you're trying to like do half and half and be like half in, half out, lukewarm. And, I still wanted to like go out and like drink and do it. And like, I still struggle with things. Obviously I'm not perfect, but yeah, I feel like just getting older too, you know, like you're like, okay, something needs to give, something needs to change, and I'm not doing it right. So I need to fully surrender. And that has literally changed my life.
It's really crazy hearing that, because there's the correlation between what you just said and then, like, I'm pretty sure I probably could speak for the guys too, but like my sobriety. We're like, when I'm running shit, I run it into the ground. I am not good. I drive a car into the wall. But like, as soon as I surrender and say, Jesus, help me, like, I'm giving it all.
Do you sing it like that too? Cause
I do all the time, actually. Where my brothers are like, okay, calm down.
I might need to try that one.
But it's true. And I've done it also in my sobriety too. Like, this isn't my first rodeo, but like, even in my journey where I'll be sober and doing the things that I know that is required, part of my 12 steps and things. But sometimes I'm like, well, I got this shit. I got this. And then I start feeling a little bit weird, or it's like, you just know things aren't really right, or maybe making not the best decisions. And sure enough, it's because I'm trying to take back that control. It's like, no, you don't have it.
God's got this.
Yeah. Like, sit down.
God's got this.
Get out of the driver's seat.
Like, as an addict, and I can only speak for like myself and other addicts. We part of the deal with us and the steps is like turning our will and our life over to the care of God every day, right? And like, for me, oftentimes it's every 5 minutes, because sometimes I'm doing stuff, and that the devil likes to creep in on me, because I feel like I'm a lot like you in the sense of that, he's given me this ministry to of treatment centers to help people in the deepest, darkest parts of despair in hell, the people that are currently kissing the devil, and I get to go in there and help them get out. And there oftentimes he puts in stuff into my head like, you're gonna fail today, your businesses are gonna fall apart, and it's like this stuff to try to get me to take back control, which increases your my stress levels. Which is kind of like what you were talking about, in the fact that we all sometimes have to reach whatever emotional bottom it is for us to say, help. I need help. And that was actually the question I want to ask you a little bit ago, and I just want to jump back into this question because after this answer, I got to take off. Shane's going to take over my microphone. But what was that moment for you? Where was that real turning point where you were like, I can't keep doing this life. I need your help.
It wasn't so much I can't keep doing this life. It was the first night that I was violated on my parole and put in solitary. And it was a night that I thought, okay, Michael, you've handled everything to this point. 'Cause I'm a very optimistic guy. I can deal with anything, and that was my life up to that point. But that night, I thought, really, it was over. I said, the government has got me. I'm never going to get out of prison because that's what they told me. They were indicting me on another big case. My wife, she waited for me 5 years, 13 months on parole, bad time during a parole. We had little babies at home, and I said, I'm going to lose the girl I did all of this for. She's not going to wait for me now. I said, they can't put me out on the yard because I got everybody looking to kill me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in a 6x8 cell. And I was, I said this, and I mean it. I used to demean people that were suicidal. I called them weak.
Yeah.
How do you not face up to your troubles? You're weak. I would dismiss them. I wouldn't have empathy for them. But I don't do that anymore because that night I was not suicidal. I can't say I was that brave that I was going to take my own life, but I really wanted to just close my eyes and say, God, I don't want to go through this. I visited my father for 25 years. I saw my family fall apart. I'm going to spend the rest of my day in solitary? For what? Take me. And I honestly felt like that. And I was laying on that cot, and it was just over for me. And then, I've said this a million times, but a prison guard handed me a Bible that night, and that's when my journey started. But that was really the worst night. I said, I can't do this. I just can't. I got to have my wife visit me, go through this all, let her just go find somebody else. And that was hard for me because I'm a jealous guy, right?
Sure.
I didn't want to give her up in death.
Yeah.
Not even, as a matter of fact, I want her right now. Don't let me come back and haunt you because I will. You're alone forever. You got your kids, I gave you them. That's your companions. That's
I'm
it.
with him.
Oh yeah, that's my parents.
And I mean it. I still
Yeah.
mean it.
Yeah.
I'll figure out a way to come back and haunt you. But the interesting thing, it's funny that you said that because, I'm 73 years old. My faith is strong, but certain things happen, and I don't know why. And recently, I would say in the last couple of months, things that I did in my former life that I really regret have been coming into my mind more and more, and I've been really asking God for more forgiveness because sometimes you question your own heart. And one of the things that I fear, and I fear this, is I don't want to stand in front of God on Judgment Day and tell him all these wonderful things I did, and him those 4 words, I never knew you. Because God knows our hearts. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this to feel good? Are you doing this? So I constantly have these checks and balances on myself. And lately, for some reason, these things, like this past Sunday at church, I just prayed, Lord, forgive me. And for some reason, these things have been coming into my head even more. And I don't know why, but it's, and I've realized this, every bad thought that comes into our head, every bad action is from the devil. There's no question. Bible tells us that. So how do we defeat it? Put on the armor of the Holy Spirit, stay nourished in your faith. We need it constantly. And when you have a background or a past and you've spent 20 years on the street, these things just keep hitting you. And you have to keep hitting back with the Word of God. So I don't know why I said this. I think your viewers needed to hear that this is a constant.
For sure. It's
constant.
a daily
It's not-
reprieve.
It's a daily reprieve.
100%.
A daily reprieve. I feel you because I have that same stuff, right? I have this stuff all the time, and I had a really good sponsor who passed away during COVID, and I talked to him about the same stuff that you're telling me right now. And one of the best things about the 12-step program is we have this 4th and 5th step, right, where we, and then a lot of times you're sitting next to a guy that's done the same stuff that you've done,
Mm.
and you're telling him about it, right? And you're like, and he's nodding his head. And then he tells you some stuff that he did. And my point is, though, is that he told me the last time, he said, next time you pray, he said, God already forgives you. He said, you pray and you ask God to teach you how to forgive yourself. And I started doing that, and I still do it to this day, because sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I'm not that good of a person. But my heart is good. And I have a hard time forgiving myself, even though I know he's already forgiven me.
Well, see, that's a good point, because you're not doubting God. You're doubting your motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you really sorry for this because you want to be right in God's eyes? Or are you sorry for some reason that isn't genuine?
Mm-hmm.
And I keep checking myself on that, because I don't want to stand in front of the Lord and hear the words that he spoke, that we know of, that passage in the Bible. Because, look, there were a lot of things that you do on the street, and I don't mean to say, but I was a pretty prominent guy.
Yeah.
So you got to do a lot of stuff. And I had a big crew, and you're handed things, and this is your responsibility. And I did things that I knew were wrong,
Sure.
that I was very uncomfortable with, very uncomfortable. I can think of 3 things in particular that I was so uncomfortable with doing, but I did it anyway. And that's, you're doing wrong, you're checking yourself, but you did it anyway. Now, some people could say, well, that's courage, and other people say, well, that's cowardice, because you could have backed out, you should have changed. I don't know how to look at it,
Mhm.
whatever way. Either way, it's wrong. But, and those things, I don't want to say haunt me. That's right. That's not right. Even though my wife might say differently, because she said, I battle in my sleep so often.
Sure.
Maybe that's when this stuff comes out. I don't know, because I don't remember the next day. But she said, a couple of times she had to hit me.
For sure.
What are you doing? Who are you fighting with now?
Yeah.
So I think
Yourself.
that's, yeah. And that's what it is. So, Christians need to understand this is a constant battle, because we live in the real world, and the enemy is lurking all the time. And we just have to stay nourished and stay the course.
Oh my God, my dad says that to me all the time. Even when I was just, out there thinking I knew everything.
That brings me into what I was gonna ask. Was there something you did, because you said you caught a lot of shots, people died, people got hurt, legs were broken. Was there ever a time where you said, oh, that was we did the wrong thing right there? It was the wrong guy, or it was a mistake?
Yeah, he said there's 3 in particular.
No, but 3 in particular that he regretted, but not that it was a mistake. It was maybe the wrong guy. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the answer is, unfortunately, several times.
Oh, Jesus.
Several times, because, listen, politics get into that
Sure.
life, and there's greed like anything else. And sometimes you're given an order, it's wrong. And again, you could say this is either courage or coward. Either you're being a good soldier, or you're being a coward.
For sure.
Well, I know it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway because I don't want to be in trouble myself. So that could be considered cowardice. I don't know. Or, hey, I was given an order, I took an oath, and this is what I have to do. So it depends which way you look at it. Me, I looked at it, I'm given an order,
I'm doing my job.
this is what I got
I
to do.
look at it that way as well.
It happens all the time in the United States military.
Yeah.
Some of the worst trauma that we see in the treatment centers is the innocent lives that were taken because of orders given
Yeah.
by our own government. I had a friend that committed suicide. He was a gunner on the back of a truck, and the thing that haunted him at night was the women and children that got mowed down because of his gun.
Well, you know what? That's very interesting, because I really understand PTSD with people.
Sure.
And I've even questioned myself and say, why don't you have that?
Mm.
Why are you not struggling with that? And I don't think I am, unless it comes out at night. And thank God that's the only time. But because I get it. I mean, it's tough to deal with and live with. But and I don't know how people do it that don't believe in the Lord. genuinely believe in the Lord and not looking for a crutch,
Yeah.
but genuinely believe in the Lord. Say, okay, forgiveness is real, and this is all real. And you know, I encourage men. I said, listen, you can't love somebody you don't know. If you do nothing when you leave here today, you got to go out and study and learn about Jesus. It's got to permeate your heart and your mind. You got to understand this is real, or you can't get out of the situation that you're in. I really believe that. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe it's not as complex as that, but I believe it. I don't think I could have come out of this if I didn't really believe.
No way.
Honestly believe. And it took me several months and maybe 3 years in the hole to really believe that. And then obviously what occurred afterwards. But, you know, none of this is easy. You know, I don't like the fact that any time a Christian, we make a mistake, Christians, their faith is phony, this and that and that. And I try to respond sometimes on social media, not out of anger to that person, but so that everybody else reading it can hear an answer when I think it's appropriate. And I said, listen, nowhere in the Bible does it say Christians are ever going to be perfect. Never. There's only one perfect person that ever walked the face of the earth. But the sign of a Christian is not perfection. It's you make a mistake. You repent, you get on your knees, you ask the Lord for forgiveness, and then you get better. You can't continue living in a pattern of sin and say that you're a true Christian. You can't. You can sin, but you have to be able to break that. And I believe that if you're sincere enough, the Lord will give you that strength to break it. That's my feeling on it. And again, this is not God's word, this is mine, but this is what I get from reading the Bible. So, and again, you know, God knows our hearts. And I tell people that all the time. You know, somebody got mad at me because I have a picture of 50 mob guys behind me, right? It's a canvas beautifully done by a guy, and we're actually selling them. The guy says, how could you have that behind you, all those evil men? And I said, where do you come off judging a person's heart? You don't know how these men are all evil. You know, it's not right to say something like that. But, you know, that's the world that we live in. And, you know, as Christians, we have to shine a light.
Yeah.
You know, and like now I'm struggling with, all right, Trump is in. I have a lot of, I'm mad at certain people in government.
Sure.
I don't know them, but I'm mad at them because of the damage that they caused this country. Because I don't think there's anything worse than taking an oath to protect people and act in their best behalf, and they put their faith in you, and then you totally betray them to a point where people die. People die. How can you do that? I'm not capable. I don't think I'm capable of doing that. And I'm not throwing bouquets at myself. I think you all probably feel the same.
Yeah.
That is just horrendous when you're in a position of trust like that and you just destroy people to the point where you're taking their lives. And so people now coming in, Trump is going to go on a revenge tour. And I said, don't mistake revenge with justice. I said, people should be held accountable so that these things don't happen again.
Sure.
Because we have a nation to protect. We have a world to protect. And these things cannot go untouched and unnoticed. I'm not saying people got to go to jail. I'm not saying people got to get killed, but people need to be made aware that you cannot get away with this when people are putting their trust in you. And that's my whole point. And I hope that he does hold these people accountable.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I just want to say, I have to go, but it's a pleasure having you both on here. Shane's going to take my spot.
Or I might just sit here.
Take my spot.
All right.
Yeah.
But it's a pleasure, and I look
thank
forward
you.
to
Thanks for
watching the
having
rest
us.
of this. Thank you.
Shane's been dying to get in that seat so
I
he
know,
could have
yeah,
an actual real microphone.
All right.
But I love what you're saying because it goes. I think a lot of people will look at somebody that is super faith-based and think that it's easy as pie. It's not. It's a daily thing. It's a constant conversation. It's a constant. It sparked me when you mentioned solitaire, right? Solitary confinement, where for our viewers, that's basically where it's you and your book. No windows, no yard, nothing but yourself and your thoughts. And you're lucky that you had a Bible to actually be able to kind of go somewhere with instead of your own imagination. And it just sparked me because in that time, that's when you were able to kind of draw from and kind of have that's when your spiritual growth started to happen and your relationship started to kind of forge with Jesus. And you just kind of take your leap there, where then to me, it's like, yeah, that's why we're supposed to stay still, stay quiet, stay in meditation or stay in prayer, because it's always part of my 12 steps or whatnot is like, staying spiritually fit is like, that's part of the deal.
Sure.
You pray, you meditate, and meditation's so hard for me because I got a monkey brain. My monkey mind is like, like just doing just flips up in there. And then for whatever reason, you saying that today was like, yeah, so you can just be quiet with you and him and have that still moment. So that's when you are able to either hear something, ask the question that you're kind of wanting to get answered for you. And it's just another indication of nobody has this figured out. We all have to work at it. It's just like with everything, staying the course. You got to stay on top of it. Whether it's your like spiritually fit is so nice, especially your work. You work out. I see your body, girl. I see you in the gym, and it's if you don't use it, you lose it. Not that God is never there. He's always there. He's ready for you. It's just a matter of, are we willing to take that leap of making that connection? It's just wild to see how little correlations between like sobriety and addiction, and how important it is for your relationship with faith in God and Jesus, and to have like the two kind of going. You need both to even maintain any type of kind of stillness within yourself.
I God just put this in my head. Miquelle, I've never revealed this before, but I'll say it now because we're sitting together. Whenever a mob guy went to jail, they always used to say, get your wife or your girlfriend pregnant. This way they have something to do while you're away. And I never intended that, but it just so happened. I'm coming home from, I was on trial. Giuliani put me on this crazy case. I was on trial 7 months. And I get home, and my wife, my then wife, almost wife, I got to reveal that, shows me these little slippers to show me that she was pregnant with Miquelle.
Oh, my God.
And I didn't realize then I was going to go to jail because I had beat that case, but they indicted me right away on another one. That's the one I went to jail from. But I was so thankful that she was born. And she was like 6 months old when I went to prison, but we were so close. I mean, she was so attached to me that I honestly, if she saw me, and I'll remember this specific, like it happened yesterday. She was sitting in her high chair, and I was walking by. I had to crawl on the floor so she didn't see me, because as soon as she saw me, she cried and she wanted me. We were that close. And I really remember that night. I said, you know what, God, you blessed me with, and I wasn't even really a Christian at that point. I said, you blessed me with this baby that I love, and that's going to keep her mom company while I'm away. I don't know why I said that. I just thought it was appropriate to say it right now.
No, but I think it's beautiful.
That's a lot of love.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful because you guys don't do this sitting next to each other, and it's very it's a lot. Like it's talking about such intimate details that not many people should even know. Yeah. Really, and it just for how life kind of happens, a lot of us do, and a lot of us, like I said, getting to meet you and stuff. I don't like to use the word fan because I feel that's kind of crazy, but yeah, and really love the message that you have brought and put out there, and then to see you guys having your relationship is just another testament of like the beautiful things that can happen when you go through the storm. You hang on, especially with family and things that sometimes on the outside looking in, a lot of people want to be able to go through what you guys have gone through as a family. There's no way, because sometimes people don't have enough strength or enough faith to really see the rainbow on the other side. And so for you guys to sit here, I love the story. I think it's awesome. And she's it has to feel good that you were, you know, a little baby and your dad has that much, as you already know, loves you more than we can ever imagine how that could even feel. But you were 6 months old and he's having to like crawl.
Well, yeah, and coming
What
up
happened?
anniversary Thanksgiving, we had just come home from the hospital, and it was our first Thanksgiving together. It was Camille, her, and me, and it was like the best Thanksgiving I ever had. Really,
Don't
it was
tell
just
anyone else.
it was just the three of us.
Right?
Yeah, it was so great, and wow, I mean, I remember that, and it was great. But you know, it's I don't know what to say at this point. I get a little emotional when I think back
Sure.
then. But she was just a big part of our beginning of our life, and obviously through today. But she had a tremendous impact. You know, and other people I saw, you know, and honestly, we were getting married. We were planning to get married, but I was on trial. And Julian had told me in the courtroom, he says, Franzese, if I convict you on this case, you're going to get double what your father got. You're going to get 100 years. And that's the kind of time they were giving mob guys back then. So I said, am I going to marry this girl? I'm going to go away forever. Why would I do that to her? So I kept kind of prolonging it, seeing what happened with the case. And then she got pregnant during her trial. It was like more pressure. And fortunately, I was acquitted in that case. But when she was pregnant, I had mixed emotions. I thought, oh my gosh, you know, now what? You know, but turned out good. Turned out good.
No, for sure.
Michael, good for you, man. I'm telling you, my religion, suicide's a sin. And God is really a big part of our well-being. You know what I mean? And you're just a changed man. I mean, you went from, well, I'm going to say it, you know, a killer, right?
Yeah.
Living a lifestyle like that, to this right here. I mean, it's just, it's an absolute incredible manifestation of a human being, you know? Happy for you. Happy for you guys. It's just bloody incredible, man. And you're saving lives right now. You're giving back tenfold what you did. You know, and another thing is that when you stand in front of my religion, my
He's
God,
Jewish.
it's all forgiven. There's no hell in my religion. You pay back. So, yeah.
And you said suicide is
It's a sin.
a sin.
It's a sin,
It's
yeah.
an unforgivable sin.
It's an unforgivable sin. You're actually not even buried in the cemetery. You're buried in a different, you can't be buried with your family. You have to be buried in a different plot, not in a Jewish cemetery, in a different area. Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, as a Christian, we believe that blasphemy is the only unforgivable sin. And I think some people don't realize what blasphemy is, but blasphemy is actually a rejection of Jesus Christ, just not accepting him. But it's tough to, you know, in our faith, I mean, suicide is, any sin is forgiven,
Yeah.
except for rejection of
Yeah.
Christ. But don't commit suicide.
No. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
seriously.
think that these religions, for Jewish people, we brought up different things because there are so few of us. So I think that's why we made suicide a sin. Just like we don't eat pork because when it's uncooked, you could get stomach issues. So our religion or our ways of living were more medical and spiritual things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of my dearest friends until today.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. We got along very well.
Yeah. Well, Jews and
As a matter of
Italians.
fact, as a kid, there was a guy that, when my dad went away, his name was Audi Entrada, Jewish.
Yeah.
And I would have Seder dinner with him.
You see, I figured.
Every Seder.
I figured. Yeah.
And then he ends up getting killed. It was one of my eye-opening experiences in that life. I had nothing to do with that, by the way. I was devastated when it happened. But, yeah, always been close.
There was always a close bond with Italians, the mob, and
Yeah.
the Jewish people. We were
I
always
wanted to be Jewish when I was younger.
yeah,
Are you
we
serious?
were always involved.
She grew
with
up
All my
among
friends
Jewish,
were
yeah.
all Jewish. I used to
Yeah.
be like, Mom, why am I not Jewish?
Why didn't she get bus mitzvahed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
like,
I
want one
wanted
of
a
those
bat mitzvah.
parties.
Yeah.
I want to go have that dinner with
Yeah.
the sticky rice, and I'm like, why is everyone Jewish? I feel left
Yeah.
out.
That is so wild.
Yeah,
I didn't have a bat mitzvah, but I had a quinceañera.
I
And
had
so
a
did
sweet
you.
16. No, I had the choice, quinceañera or
You didn't
sweet
have it?
16. I had a sweet 16. That was wild.
Yeah.
So what's your
Not because
biggest?
I was wild.
What's your biggest
No,
thing now
seriously,
that you're
the
looking
family.
forward to?
Yeah. Wild.
Do you have a goal now? Is there like another plateau you're looking to reach, or you just living life and then praising Jesus and spreading out?
Yeah, as far as my faith is concerned, I just follow where God leads me on that. It's not like I have anything. This sounds crazy, but it's a little bit political in that, I'm building my platform to a point where if Trump and our conservative arm does the right thing for these next 4 years, I want to build myself up to where I have a voice where I can try to continue that in 2028.
With Vance.
Yeah, because you know what I believe, to those who have been given much, much is expected in return. And I believe that God has given me a platform. And I also believe the sin of omission is as serious as the sin of commission.
100%.
And sometimes even more serious.
Yeah.
Because when you have a voice and you sit back and don't do anything about wrongs that
bro.
you see, that's serious.
Yeah.
So I'll continue to speak out in that regard. And it's always, how do you temper yourself not to sound, you don't want to be the angry person out there, because I'm not that kind of guy. I'm actually, I have to say this, my wife will bear me out. I'm a very forgiving guy. I really am. You got chances with me. To the point where sometimes she says, this guy's taking advantage of you. And she's right. She's right. But, I look at it that I've been very fortunate. So I try to turn the other cheek at times. I don't mean like, God forbid, somebody would hurt my family. That's
Of course.
Brooklyn, let's go, right?
Right.
But other than that, I just feel that we have an obligation to speak out. It's like, I've been not lecturing Christians, but I've been telling them, listen, if you're a solid Christian, how are you not so turned off by gender-affirming surgery in minors without parental consent? How are you not turned
Even with
off?
parental, I'm sorry, even with parental consent, the
At
parents
any-
are off.
At any,
No, then that means
yeah.
that you just have bad parents then.
Yeah, I mean, I said that
I'm with you
wrong.
100%, bro.
Yeah,
We're
I-
with you 100%.
Yeah. I mean, how do you affirm being for abortion in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month? I mean, how do you justify that
Yeah, you can't.
as a Christian?
You really can't.
If you love the person and they had that belief, you can't vote for them. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Biblically, you can't. So it's things like that. And so what I keep trying to tell people is if you're a person of faith, you have to stand by your faith. And if you're not a person of faith, you know who Senator John Kennedy is from Louisiana. He's my favorite. I love this guy. He's so real, good old boy from down south. He did he was questioning someone in Congress about abortion. And he very graphically, it's hard to watch, was describing abortion in the 6th month. And the woman, who was obviously very uncomfortable, had to say yes. So the baby feels pain. Yes. When you grab his arm and tear it off, and the baby feels, and he went through it graphically. And I said, how could anybody sit through that? No less be an advocate for it. And I'm leading people to that. I'm saying, watch this. You don't have to be of any faith. You just have to be a human being. And, so I've been speaking out about that. I said, listen, obviously we understand the birth of the life of the mother, of course. God forbid my daughter got raped. Of course, we look the other way at that. And I don't even know if that's biblically correct. Maybe I'm supposed to say, no, you're not supposed to do that. I don't know.
Tough
but
call.
as a dad
Tough call.
and as a person, I say no.
Yeah.
I understand.
I do too.
But if it's birth control, no, I'm sorry. And when a woman says, well, that's not your body. You've been gifted with that body inside you to grow it, nourish it, and have its own self at some point. So I think there's some things out there, and I know it's a touchy subject, and I get it, and I try to be practical about my approach to it. But I also have to stand on, biblical terms on that. So, there's things like that I feel that we need to speak out on. We have to. We have an obligation to do it, but to do it in a way where you don't turn people off.
We want
Sure.
to offend, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be
No,
offensive.
because you don't want people to all of a sudden
We want to grow
close their
hate.
ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
know?
you become
And then-
legalistic and
Yeah.
point fingers.
and
Yeah.
that's not
We're
what it's
doing
about. And that's also
Creating
not how
hatred.
Jesus is,
No.
Jesus
Exactly.
hung out with the thugs and the prostitutes. He
100%.
was trying to put us all together. And it's like, that's why I think the creation of this podcast and like kind of why I joined as well is like breaking the stigma of addiction, and fentanyl is bipartisan. It's coming and
You're
knocking
right.
at your front door. Doesn't matter whose kids it kills, who your parents voted for, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it does not matter. And I think that's what's like the beauty of what I kind of see the pendulum going to swing, where it's like, we're all on the home team. Like we're all on the
Exactly.
same. This is like offense and defense, and we're not against one another. Like
No.
we're all trying to be the best country in the entire world, the baddest one on the planet.
Exactly.
And that's why we're in America. That's why my grandparents came over here. Why my mom came over here to have the American dream, and for us to build our businesses, work hard, raise our families,
That's
and
right.
live the best that we possibly can live, and be loving. You don't have to get along. You don't have to have the same views, but everybody deserves dignity, value, and respect.
100%.
And then you can keep it pushing. And I'm like, where did we lose that? You know, where did we lose the have that?
We lost God
conversation?
in
that-
schools. Everything's gone.
You see, and that's the question. It's not so much the person sometimes that has that belief of committing the act, but where did that come from?
Sure.
Who led you down that path? That's why it's about changing perception of what's right and wrong.
Sure.
You know, if people are being taught, if a woman is being taught, it's okay to do this. Well, who taught you that? And why are you not seeing in another way, you know? So we have to change perception on that and get back to what we consider normal.
And also, the truth is the truth. Like, trust me, if there was, when I was playing soccer in college and there was a guy that came in and tried to play against me or on my team and then wanted to change in my locker room, but was
He'd be killed.
no, my brother and my dad would be down at that school in a heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
No questions asked. So it's like, you know, putting back into, and I don't care, like, if you want to be whatever you want to be, this is why America, we live out here, you know. This is what is the dream. The American dream is be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do,
Exactly.
but you're not coming in my bathroom if you have a penis, you know.
100%.
It's like that's the truth. Like, let's not blur these lines here.
And
You know what I mean?
don't
100%.
disguise mental health with something else.
Right.
Don't, oh, your mental health. Well, no, I'm not mentally ill. I just wanted to cut it off. Well, come on, man.
Yeah, that's
It just gets
No,
little-
I'm 100% with you. For me, it's mental
yeah.
health issues. And we're disguising it with some other woke. Sorry. I'm just, I'm a real Republican, man.
no. I agree with you.
I'm just a real Republican.
You're
way to go, Shade.
I'm sorry.
I think it's
No.
like
100%.
it's become so hateful, and I
Sure.
think that's what the
Totally.
toughest thing is. Like being a Christian, and I have like an audience in my classes.
Sure.
And, I'm trying to build my platform a little bit more, and just being more outspoken,
Yeah.
like realizing people that I consider my friends, the
Yeah.
things that they said after the election, I was
know.
just like, whoa. And it was like, you're entitled to feel that way. And I'm okay with you saying some of the things you're saying because that's your belief. But when it's like, F you if you voted for this person or
Right.
stuff like that was so aggressive. I lost so many friends after the election. Number one, I know like my followers went down so much,
Yeah.
which was the first time I was really outspoken about, we went to the big party in Florida with Patrick Bet-David.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so many people were like, that's amazing. That's so cool.
Sure.
But I lost a lot of followers, and I unfollowed a lot of people
Sure.
because
So
I was
did
just
I.
like, it was just so hateful. And it's like, as a Christian, it's really hard because I am taught to forgive, and I am taught to, love and be kind. And I truly believe that I'm genuinely that kind of person. And it's hard for me to cut people off or shut people
Sure.
out, but it's also like you are who you surround yourself with, right?
Yes.
And we need to be around like-minded people,
Have
or
to.
we need to be a big voice around those people that aren't like-minded, because we need to stand out and we need to be a light. And that's just like what that showed me. I was just like, wow, like, I thought we were more divided than we are, but when you saw all of the red, it was just like the country is everybody's wanting something. They're searching for something. They want to change. They want,
For sure.
we are more united than we think.
Yeah,
and
we
that
are.
was really incredible to see. And so it's like the followers that I lost and I'm like, I think it's like, it's more on our side and more on the Lord's side if I, would be so big to say that.
Well,
but yeah,
look,
there's
we
just-
lost in the last 4 years. The Lord, there's no God in school. When I was growing up, we did prayers in school. We did it in the morning. I had Friday prayers. I had Saturday synagogues. I mean, we did a lot.
Yeah.
And even in Christian school, when I went for a little bit of high school, you stood up. You did O Canada.
Yeah.
I'm from Canada
Yeah.
myself. We did O Canada. You know what I'm saying? My kids in their private school, they do the American anthem and they do Hatikva. They do the Jewish national anthem as well. They do both in the morning. It's still there.
Well, I don't even have kids, and I'm honestly like terrified. So
Yeah.
like, where am I going to send my kids to school? I
But
just hear my
Texas is
clients
beautiful.
talking about it, and I'm like, it is so scary.
It's scary.
It
And
is.
But
Well-
see, I look at it like a test too, where it's like, you won't get the outcome that you want with hate.
No.
And
Right.
hate never is going equals to nothing.
yeah,
So it's like you bring up followers. Like I lost a lot of followers as well when Chad and I were able to go over and do Make America like healthy again with RFK Jr. and we were speaking
Yeah.
about addiction and substance abuse, which is really, that's why I say it's a bipartisan issue. So that was really eye opening to me, seeing so much countering to that where I didn't bring any politics into the conversation. It was literally bringing awareness to the situation of the fentanyl coming over into our country and killing our children, as well as your neighbor, your spouse, your child. But it also goes to show like where I have to check myself as well, where everybody, you lead with love.
yeah,
You can't be upset with somebody because they don't have the same beliefs as you. So you have like, I really love what you're saying is like, yes, God is giving you a platform and you and you as well, and then utilizing it and putting your in a loving way, so that way other people cannot, because you only see it from these like really angry individuals where I'm like, I think
yeah.
you
You
need
might
to pray
reach
more.
someone that you didn't
know?
think that you could reach, or that was totally turned off by just your approach and how you
For
said
sure,
it.
approach is
You know,
everything.
it's like if someone's just hateful and
And if
you know,
if somebody comes
hammering
at
it.
you, if someone comes at you sideways, Brooklyn's coming out.
I want to tell you something.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's kind of how it comes. It's like you have to
100%.
be able to approach
Yes.
people, have
In
an
a
open
good way.
dialogue,
Yeah.
have a conversation. That's where it should be. Where you hear it sometimes with individuals, but I'm like, people are just trying to get their way.
Well, I'll tell you, little signs are happening. There was a saying on the street, and I have employed that. Sometimes my wife says, how could you do that? The best way to defeat your enemies is to make them your friends. On the street, very important.
Sure.
Even if they're not really your friends, they think you're your friends, and there's peace between you. You may not sit down and have dinner with them, you may not associate with them, but hey, everything's cool. Defeated your enemy. Very telling, in my view, is that when these two talk show hosts, Joe Scarborough and his wife, went to see Trump, they've demeaned Trump in every way possible. And after they came out of the meeting, Trump said, it was a very good meeting, maybe a good idea. Instead of being hateful towards them and saying, I don't want to talk to these people and how dare you, they called him a Nazi, they called him a threat to democracy, they're incompetent, they called people stupid, those words that followed him, the worst. But he came out of that meeting saying, oh, yeah, it was a good dialogue, we had a good conversation. Now, you can get cynical and say, okay, what is he planning?
Sure.
But
Sure.
I like to think that God has instilled something in him to show we need unity in this
For sure.
country. I really believe that. I'm seeing these little signs in Trump where I'm saying God is really working through him to get unity back because, again, 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people will turn from their evil ways, then I will hear their voice from heaven and I will hear their land. And I think that's what God is giving us another opportunity here. And that, by the way, is Old Testament, so we should ascribe to that. I think he's giving us another opportunity here. That's why our voice now is even more important than it may have been in the past because we have a shot at it and we can't blow it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, when I say I want to continue to be a voice in 2028, because I'm telling people, I think I have the right approach. Don't ever forget how these people lied to you. Don't forget. Go next time around, remember what they did. And when somebody lies to you constantly, you cannot put your trust in them.
Sure.
You just can't. It's like you have a friend. He lies to you once. Okay, I get it. Second time, or a business partner. Hey, what's going on here? Third time, hey, take a walk. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. You cannot forget these things. and get complacent.
Sure.
You know, and I think we have a responsibility, if we have a platform, to continue that dialogue with people. Not in a hateful way. Just,
of course.
Just remember.
I'm with you, brother.
Remember.
Yeah, I'm with you. 100%.
That's why
I mean, they'll kill them with kindness.
Yes. Whatever you're doing is, just continue. It's great.
Yeah.
We got to keep making people aware. And, listen, I have a sister that died of an overdose of drugs.
Oh, wow.
I have a brother that was 25 years a drug addict. I can't even, so I've been around this my whole life. I can't even begin to tell you, as you know, what he put me personally trying to keep him alive.
Yeah. The ripple effect.
Yes. And I will tell you this. I have to say that, and this is strange, I did more damage to people as a result of my sister's addiction because she was my baby sister and I loved her. And to go into a bar in Queens and see somebody abusing her was, I couldn't take it, honestly. But I don't have a lot of regret for that. It's crazy.
No, I'm with you there.
I can't say, oh my God, that doesn't keep me up at night.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
But that doesn't keep me up at night. Other things do. But so I understand the whole addiction thing. And because of that, I've never even smoked a joint in my life.
Yeah.
Nothing. Why? I'm afraid I might like it too much. Who knows? You don't know what your capacity is unless you really test yourself. And then, oh my God, why did I do that? I don't even want to test myself in that regard because I get headstrong into things too. But, whatever way we can continue a voice to help people avoid some of the pitfalls that we've had, we have an obligation to do that.
I agree. I really, really appreciate you both coming on.
Yeah.
Sharing your story and just giving hope to people out there that are stuck in a bad spot, thinking that they can't get out or think that they've done too many things that
forgiveness is unattainable.
Exactly.
It is attainable.
For sure.
For sure.
Every
For
single
every single person. Yeah.
Because we create a lot more detriment in our own minds as opposed to the truth, because that's usually what the devil wants.
Yes.
And so you both coming on together too is like a cool moment just for me in a selfish manner.
Me
For
too.
me too. I'm gonna call my mom right away.
And
This is a first.
Yeah.
It's
Hopefully not a last.
No, for sure. You guys definitely, I mean, you're a natural. So for you being like,
you are.
not
You're
really
good.
wanting to do
You're
it at the
good.
very
Yeah.
I mean, Webb already knew. He was like, oh, no.
Well,
this is happening.
I have one disappointment with her.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
And that is because as a young girl, I've talked to my wife, I said she should be a newscaster because she presents herself so well, very intelligent. She would have, the other side of me, she would have made a lot of money. She would have had a great career, and that's what you want for your children,
Sure.
And I still believe she would have been terrific, but she went in another direction. She's doing great, so it's okay,
Hey. Time is of the essence. You can
I
still do
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
Maybe we should hook up a workout or something. I mean,
For sure.
You know
I'm
what I mean?
definitely, I'm coming to the gym. For
Do a
sure.
workout. I
We've
mean,
already-
if you guys invite
but-
me, I'll gladly come on.
No.
Work out
No.
with
You're not invited.
all right, fair enough.
No,
Michael,
no.
You're better than me. I couldn't keep up with that.
If there's-
it's funny. I have to start probably going to my son-in-law's gym. I'm a creature of habit. I have a gym I go to 2 or 3 times a week. I have my routine.
Yep.
I have my stuff, and I like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I may have to start.
I think you have
You've
to.
never
I
worked
think
out
that
at
I think
Turk.
that Webb
No.
has to introduce you to Gino. I think that Michael
Oh
could use a
my
little bit
God.
of Gino as well.
Horrible.
I think he walked in once. Did you look
I
in the
walked
door?
Yeah,
in
you
for a
probably walked
moment.
in and wanted
He
to
was
make sure like what his
Yeah.
son-in-law's like spot looks
Exactly.
like. Was there? All right, I guess
That's
this will
nice.
do. Before we end, I also want to give major respect to your wife and to your mom
Yeah.
for being here today, and also
For hanging out for
take-
50 years plus, or
Yeah.
40 years, or 30 years, or whatever.
It'll be 40
Yeah.
next year.
40.
But I have
There's a lot
one
of strength in that.
request.
yeah,
I want you to keep bothering my wife to be able to sit in that
I would
chair
love
with me,
to.
too.
I would-
Maybe
I-
the 3 of
Ask
us.
her
Done.
sure. I think
today.
it's huge on multiple levels. It takes a really strong woman to hold it down while you're away and during
Oh,
that life, and then to
100%.
continue on. So my hat is off to you. My parents celebrated coming on 52 years
Wow.
in June.
Amazing.
So I get it. My mom, she's a 4'11" Mexican little rock star, but you don't want to fuck with that lady because she will put the hammer down. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
That's what I say.
the
He's
same.
the softie. I actually.
Oh, for sure.
It's
I
the
agree.
same in my
I
family.
agree. And
My
if my
mom's
mom
crazy.
does not
He's
like
the
you,
easy one.
forget about like good luck. Have fun.
My mom was the first
person.
person to break my nose. On the way to a hockey game,
Right.
I scared her. We crashed into a fence in the snow. I said, "Look out!" I played a joke. I thought it was funny.
Oh,
She backhanded me, dropped me off at the ring, broken nose, bleeding. She still has the ring today, and every now and then she'll go, "You remember this ring right here?"
Yeah, you're like, Mom, how can I forget?
Oh, I tell her. So yeah,
you know, it's amazing the roles play. My dad was a tough guy, no
Yeah.
question. But my dad hopefully made me a little smart. My mother made me tough.
yes,
Because she didn't spare the rod
No,
at all.
no,
My mother
not at
was
all.
Rough.
It's
beaten.
crazy.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Us
But
too.
that's a good quality
Yeah.
of moms.
So
It seems that in our ethnic groups, the mothers were always.
It was the mothers.
It was the
Oh, yeah.
mothers. Yeah, man.
well, think about the men that the mothers had to like wrangle in
Well, that-
and keep on, like, you know what I mean? You gotta,
True.
you have to have a firm hand
You're
with a
right,
firm
you're
hand.
Right, you're right.
So
Yeah.
it kind of takes.
Michael, if there's anything we could do for you, for your podcast, or for you in general, Natalie.
well,
I'm
we're all
gonna-
local too.
Yeah,
so
we're
I
here,
just
man.
found out
We're
that
here.
out
We'll
too.
do anything
Yeah.
at all. You call
Yeah.
us on a dime, we're at your side.
And
Oh,
shout
I
out to
appreciate
Webb
that,
for
yeah.
making this all happen and coming through.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Yes.
you big
Yeah,
time.
thank you, brother.
Well,
Um,
that's a good quality that Webb has. When he says he's going to do something, he does it.
Yeah.
And I'm for sure because he had mentioned it, and you hear a lot of things like that, and I'm like, oh yeah, but I didn't want to bug because I'm just didn't want to be that person. He made it happen.
Hooked it
So
up.
I was like, damn,
Yeah, it's
this
beautiful.
is real deal over here.
Well, listen, and it goes both ways. You know, anything we can do.
Thank
but
you.
Now that
Yeah.
we have a relationship,
for
Yeah.
sure.
if anything comes to mind, we'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate you guys.
I got a problem
Yeah.
with this grade sixer. He's picking.
Oh my gosh.
Done.
Thank
Don't
you
worry.
so much.
Come on.
Just slip me the name.
Right? I love
On
it.
that one,
I love
that one.
it. Thank you. That's
Awesome.
beautiful. What a